What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com, host of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Welcome to Lefty Cards right here on the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, discussing the latest trends, best practices, and insider tips on sports card investing. This episode is brought to you by NoOffSeason.com, the number one place to make money flipping sports cards. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com. And now, everybody, it's time for Lefty Cards.
Boom, 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 boom. Feeding the Ducks. We are back. Episode 9 of Lefty Cards, part of NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. Check us out at leftycards.com for more content. More importantly, thank you guys for being with us on this fantastic Memorial Day. Don't want to go any further without saying thank you for those that have given us the ability to come on and do podcasts like this and live in a great country of the United States of America. Happy Memorial Day for all of you guys that are out there that are maybe at the lake or getting sunburned at the beach, or if you're inside talking about sports cards like we are. But more importantly, well, maybe not more importantly, less importantly than Memorial Day, it is also Chase Crim's birthday. So happy birthday, Chase. You are on the show. I know this is where you wanted to be on your birthday. So
it is.
Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you. I would say it's slightly below Memorial Day, but, you know, it's like right there.
Yeah, did you see
it's like
me
a 1A, 1B.
I almost got in big trouble by saying it was more important than Memorial Day. And don't want to do that. Also, want to give a shout out to the great legend Bill Walton as he passes on today from a battle with cancer. What a legend Bill Walton was in the NBA and in the commentary scene after that. Just a super unique dude. We'll miss him. It's always good to see some Bill Walton content. But rest in peace, Bill Walton. We love having you as part of our lives, and now we hope you are in your final healing. Crim, the NBA is wild right now.
It is.
I know you're jacked about it. Give us a moment. Give us a little segment as you sip on the dew here.
So, more importantly than just me loving the Mavs, and obviously them being my hometown team, them being up 3-0, possibly sweeping the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, I'm excited. But I think I'm more happy than anything for Kyrie Irving and his ability to kind of have like a redemption tour. Because you know, back in his like Boston and Brooklyn days, everyone kind of wrote him off as being like an outsider, kind of like people wrote him off for like his beliefs, and whether that's flat earth or whatever else he said back in those days. Man, I'm just excited. I'm just happy for Kyrie and seeing him being able to get back to the finals and to have more finals moments.
Off the dome, where does he rank with you on current point guards?
Current point guards? Okay. Well, I know like today's NBA is a little different because it's like who's actually a point guard. So like if Luka counts, Luka's above him.
Okay.
I'd still probably rather have Curry, unless I'm forgetting people instantly. I think I'd rather have Kyrie and Dame over Dame.
Okay.
Just because I think Kyrie can fit better with more superstars than Dame can. Like Dame's kind of like ball centric, and as we can see, Kyrie's learned how to play off ball great with Luka. So probably top 3, definitely top 5. I know I'm forgetting names off.
Top 3, huh?
I said maybe top 3, definitely top 5. But I think for the Mavs, he's like the perfect point guard for us. Because
minus Luka.
Well, minus Luka, obviously. But out of everyone, I think he's the best for Luka because he has experience to kind of guide Luka through these things. He can play off the ball just as well as he can in ISO situations. And obviously down the stretch, we know he's one of the more clutch players probably of all time. So it's nice to have Luka and Kyrie in your pocket going into close games in the fourth. So
that Thunder, I got to give you the props because the Thunder Dallas series was something special to watch.
That was a banger series,
man. Series for sure. Much better than this current series against the Timberwolves. But I just couldn't believe they kept putting it up. Like, we got exposed big time for not having a center. I'll give you that. But, had we had a center, I think the game would have been much different because we would have been able to play our game a little bit differently. But that's what you get with a super young team. We'll be back, and there will be more series, Dallas versus Oklahoma City in the future. That I-35 rivalry is going to be pretty intense.
And I think the Thunder's definitely going to make moves. This is offseason, as they always do.
It seems like an absolute no-brainer to move Josh Giddey for a big. It just seems like a no-brainer.
And but that's why I like the Mavs' chances against anyone, because obviously we played big against y'all and won the series, and then Minnesota has Gobert, and we're playing like a completely different way against Gobert, and that's working too. So it's like no matter if you have a big or not.
Do you attribute that to Jason Kidd?
I attribute that to, obviously, I'm not the biggest Jason Kidd fan.
Yeah.
But what I will say is 2 years ago when we lost to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, we played the Jazz in the first round, and the Jazz at the time had Donovan Mitchell and Gobert.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Jason Kidd learned a lot of things playing against that team, and is using those things he learned against the Timberwolves team, who's built very similarly.
Fair. All right. Well, I'm going to bring up this list, and I'm going to have you go Kyrie over or under that player.
Okay. All right.
Luka, that's easy because we already did this one.
Yes.
Over. Curry.
Under. I'd rather have Curry.
Okay. Shea.
If you're including the playoffs, I think I'd rather have Kyrie.
Just in general, the whole body of work, where they're currently at.
I think where we're currently at, I would rather have Kyrie.
Okay. Even though the age difference?
Well, I mean, going forward. Yes, if the next 5 years I'd rather have Shea, but let's just say going
Krim has
Boston,
a franchise.
Let's just say who would I rather have in the Boston series in the finals? Assuming no one loses 4 in a row. I would rather have Kyrie than Shea going into Boston.
Wow. Okay. Ja Morant.
I would rather have Kyrie. But you also know my opinions on Ja.
Yep. Dame Lillard.
I'd rather have Kyrie.
Trae Young.
Kyrie. I'd rather have experience.
Tyrese Halliburton.
Kyrie.
De'Aaron Fox.
Kyrie. Experience.
James Harden.
Oh my gosh. Give me Kyrie, please.
Jamal Murray.
Kyrie. See, Jamal has some experience, but I would rather still have
Melo.
Oh, Kyrie.
Jalen Brunson.
Ooh, see, that's a good one because we used to have Brunson. So that's honestly a good one.
Your phone's ringing, by the way.
Is that mine? It is. It's my wife. I'm going to send her a quick text. But yeah, moral of the story is there's not a lot of point guards out there with good playoff experience that can kind of help groom Luka to becoming like a more, especially because Luka, the one thing he struggles in is his ability to bounce back from like calls against him because he gets very emotional during the game. And I think Kyrie's, like I said, I think Kyrie's the perfect player to kind of talk to him, calm him down, etc.
Yeah, I like your take here, but here's why I like some of those names seem seemingly random, right?
Yeah.
You're like, well, okay, why are you putting James Harden into this? HoopsHype.com has him listed as the 13th best point guard in the NBA.
Everyone wrote him off, man.
The 12 other guys in front of him, I named each one of them. So Brunson was 12, LaMelo.
It's funny because
11.
Brunson was 12, and he was the one I'm kind of like,
Yeah, you were like, what? And then I've Jamal Murray, James Harden, not fair. I would never mind. De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, Trae Young, stupid that he's even in there. Dame Lillard, John Morant didn't really play.
Right.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, underrated at 3, I think.
So
Steph Curry 2, and then Luka at 1.
my thing with Shea, I love Shea. Don't take anything I'm about to say as hatred towards.
Are you
Shea.
about to piss me off in the first 10 minutes?
No. I think you'll probably agree with me. Is like, so when the Mavs played the Thunder, Shea got his 30 points, right? 30, 30, 30, 30. But like his 30 just doesn't seem to make an impact on the game, in my opinion. Like most of his 30 is either threes or like mid-range jumpers. Like you don't really see him driving into the hole and then kicking it out like as much as Luka.
We didn't see that against Dallas. That's true.
Yes.
Now he got anywhere he wanted to go all season, except for when Dallas packed the lane, and that changed the series for us.
I'm just not sold on Shea making his teammates better. Like obviously he's a bucket. He's gonna get 30 a game. Right.
Dang, that's tough.
And like I told my brother this, but like I was wanting to play the Timberwolves over the Nuggets just based off playoff experience. And to me, I just think playoff experience is such a major factor. Because like the Thunder basically had little to none, right?
Yeah.
But I think going forward, y'all are going to be dangerous.
We are going to be dangerous. And we are going to keep going forward as a podcast because it's our job to talk about sports cards, and we have tried to give you the best TNT Charles Barkley Shaq little banter back and forth. But yeah, that's our NBA segment. We're going to come back to the NBA in a little bit on our deep cut segment. But another thing I wanted to talk about in the Catching Up series, just us in the first 10, 15 minutes of the show is, Krim, I freaked out last week. Because on Friday, 5th inning of a AAA game, James Wood has an early exit. And I was like, here we freaking go. I took my Buy It Now James Wood cards off of eBay at the time. As soon as I saw it, took it off of eBay, switched them to auction. And I was like, here we go. The guy's making the move. He's going to the Nationals. And find out that after the game, it's actually just some soreness that he was working through. And he's still in AAA. So a little L for me this week was I took James Wood's cards down and put them back up as an auction, figuring that he get pulled, and he would no other reason that he would get pulled in the 5th inning of a AAA game other than he's getting the call to Washington, and it ends up he's just got some soreness in his legs. And they pulled him out of just a caution move. So James Wood's fine, but my portfolio just took a small hit just because I was thinking that these cards would go around $50 or $60, and now that they're on auction, they'll probably end up around 30, 35. So small L for me, but still on the James Wood watch. Not every time a prospect leaves a game early is he going to the bigs.
But possibly that means more time for buying. So.
That does mean more time for buying. And as Krim has stated, he is his Ellie De La Cruz of 2023 in the 2024. Plenty of opportunity for us to buy back into him as he does hit the major leagues. We probably will see a huge spike in him. I tried really hard to find some James Wood cards at the Dallas show, and the only ones I saw were the ones I had. And then I think I saw maybe one card at your booth or something. And then I saw another guy who had like 50 of them. Right. And he was selling on absolute peak of James Wood. You know, like he was like $1,000 over comps on it out of 150 BGS 9.5 auto. So and I was like, and I just looked at him. He goes, I know I'm over comps, and I'm totally okay with it. And I was just like, I respect you. Actually had a very, very good conversation with that guy about prospecting in general. But the guy was just smart. He knows what he has, and he's going to put it out there if anybody wants to overpay for it, which is, I would recommend that. Put your cards up on eBay for something if somebody is willing to overpay for something. But
that shows the importance of getting there before everyone else.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and to be fair, that was on Wednesday when I did talk to him, and when the VIP section, nobody was around, and I was just like, yo, let's talk about prospects. So yes, but that I would say that guy got into James Wood a long time ago. He's been collecting James Wood for a long time. I also had I can't go any further without saying I did have a guy bring me some. He was like, are you buying? Which we're going to talk about that in a minute. And he goes, here's some cards, and it was just loads of James Wood, but it was all paper James Woods,
right?
And it was
in-person
signings.
Yeah, I remember those that came up to you.
And I was like, do I love him enough to buy the wrong card per se, in the right player? And ultimately, I will say what I ended up going forward there. But Krim, talk about like wrong card, right player, especially with a guy that's so going to be very hyped like this. What is the move you would make?
It's tough because you never know. Because with Ellie, for instance, last year it was no matter what he was printed on was gold when he got the call up, and obviously also a part of that was, his first week he went absolutely bananas in his first week after being called up. And it kind of, even though he trailed off the rest of the season, like that, his first 2 weeks in the season, like set the pace, like for his cards, right? So just kind of safely don't stick to your Bowman Chrome, stick to your Bowman Chrome autos, right? Because the last thing you want to do is buy a in-person signed auto, and then him leave a game the next week due to an injury, and then you're just kind of stuck to a card that no one really wants, right? That being said, if you can get it at a good price, I mean, you saw me how many cards did I buy at the Dallas show that was just completely random, but I just bought it because the percentages we would have made on it made sense, right? So that's kind of like where I'm at. If you can get into it at 75, even 80% in comps, I mean, go for it.
Yeah, I think ultimately I ended up passing on most of these James Woods, but I looked at him for a long time, and I was looking at comps, and I was figuring out where the guy was at, and the guy had almost the right cards, and the right player, and ultimately somebody's going to buy these James Wood cards. Is a guy that's going to move, but it wasn't a guy that I was willing to move money into specific, and the guy even was willing to come down to 80% comps for me. And I was just like, man, I'm just not comfortable making this play. It was going to be a big money play because there was like 12 of them, and so it was going to be a several $1,000 play for me. And I'm just like, I don't think I want to put several $1,000s into a speculative play on a guy I really believe in. So there is still the right card for the right time, even if it's the right player. The wrong card doesn't always mean a for sure buy. The one compelling thing that I was thinking about in this deal, and the one thing that Paul and I have been looking at recently, is the percentage return on paper 10s of the best prospects is higher than the Chrome return. So you can't only say, no, I'm only going to go for Bowman Chromes, or I'm only going to go for Bowman Chrome autos, or whatever. You can't only say no without thinking and looking at percentages, but I think it's got to fall into the correct percentages for me to be a go for it. And so I watched you at the Dallas show, and we're going to come back to this after the first commercial of the pod. But basically what I'm going to ask you, Krim, and to talk about after the commercial is, you briefly touched on it here. Your buying percentages around 80%. How far does it have to go for you to be willing to get into a card that is hard to move? Let's go to the commercial.
What's up, everyone? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. Why should you subscribe to NoOffSeason.com's premium membership? Do you like the content on this show? Want more? Well, a free 30-day trial membership at NoOffSeason.com gives you a Friday edition of the Sports Card Strategy Show called The Overflow Show. It's a premium podcast for members only every Friday, and you can ask an unlimited amount of questions to build your sports card investment portfolio, and I answer them for you. I put in the work, research, and do the analysis, give you the best possible answer so you can increase your chances of making money flipping sports cards. And if that's not enough reason to sign up for a free 30-day trial today, you get Sports Card School, tons of premium members-only articles, and our new formula-based sports card rankings to help you find the cards with the best ROI to make money in the hobby. Sign up today at nooffseason.com.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to come back to the question I asked you right before the break, Chase, is at what percentage, you've talked about percentages being as a buying and selling table at a card show, which I'm going to talk about in just a second about how this is the secret sauce moving forward. But as a percentage, if it's the wrong card, do you come down under a certain percentage, or do you just say, hey, without even looking at the card, if you can give me 70% value, I'm buying
it. At that point, it kind of just comes down to the price amount, right? Because if it's like just $1 card and like it's not even like a Prism base rookie or something, like say it's just like a Chronicles base rookie or something, I'm gonna say no, regardless if you like try to just hand it to me for free. So if it's like a couple hundred, because it's just not worth. It's not worth my time per se.
So what is worth your
worry
time?
about it? Probably like a couple $100. Like if it's like, let's just say like, oh, I have a good example. Where is it? So I bought a Kyle Kuzma optic rated rookie auto. Let me just see if I can find it real quick. I did not put in my stat.
Yeah,
but let's just say this, for example. Like a Kevin De Bruyne Kaboom.
Okay.
PSA 9. Like obviously I'm probably not gonna move that in my shop ever. But it's a triple digit card, so like if you give it to me at $70, I'll take it. That's probably a bad example because it's a Kaboom.
70% or $70?
70%.
I was like, you bought that Kaboom for $70.
So like a Kyle Kuzma, I bought a Kyle Kuzma gold optic rookie auto. Like obviously, not a lot of people want that card, but there was a comp at like it was like $500. I'm like, I mean, dude, if you give it to me at like $375, like I'll take it and I'll find someone to move it to. And I think I did it for like $380, but so like a couple $100, like I'll take the risk on it. But if it's like smaller than that, it's usually just not worth the hassle of trying to find someone who wants it.
Because I saw you guys buying stuff at your table at the show that was probably right, like you were paying probably $50 to $80 for some graded cards that are just like it's mosaic parallel PSA 10 of I don't know, LeBron or something. And it was just a fairly normal LeBron card, but it was a Gem Mint card, and you were like, it's worth $100. I'll give you 60 for it. And the guy was like, well, I mean, okay, it was just something I graded for nothing, so and so the guy he probably pulled the card and then probably has $15 in it. So maybe he's getting $60, you're getting $40 of value to potentially put a LeBron card in front of a kid who loves LeBron at your shop, and that's kind of the way the money moves. But so I saw you making those kind of deals, but then you're saying a couple hundred. Is there a difference between the two in your mind, or is that like
so the lower amount, the lower price, the less risk I'm willing to take, if that makes sense. So not risk, but the less the amount of the card is, like the better of a card I want, right? So like let's just say it's a rookie mosaic Halliburton PSA 10 and it's like $50. Like, yes, I'll take that. But if it's a $50 card that's just like some complete like, I don't know, 80s junk thing, like I don't want it. Like I know like stuff like that, like kids will come in the shop and want like a Halliburton rookie card, and maybe they can't afford a Prism Silver or whatever. So it's nice to have like different, cheaper options for those.
So you're thinking of your client essentially.
Yeah.
There you go. So just typical good business move here. You're trying to put a persona on your client. And as we think about our portfolios, we've got to have a buyer in mind. When you buy the card, you already need to be having a suggested buyer profile that you're going to sell the card to in your head when
Right.
you are planning on buying the card.
That being said, like 80% of probably more than 80, probably 90% of the cards I buy that's not for the shop, like I already know who I'm going to show this card to before I buy it. And that's where like setting up at shows, meeting with people, building relationships, that's where all that comes into
Great
play.
transition to the show in general that we did was a great thing for me because we got to, and we talked about this on the show with Cody and Paul, where we talked about how we came into a largely personal environment. Well, I mean, it doesn't seem to be personal. My dad came to the show and he was just like, oh my goodness, this is nuts. Like there's people everywhere. How do this is crazy. How does anybody know what's in here and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I totally I hear you, Dad. And that's exactly how I felt. But this is a giant room of people that just know each other and are selling cards to each other. And he was just like, no way. No way are you going to see a card that you sold to somebody end up back on somebody else's table that is the card that you sold them. He's like, there's too many people in here. I'm like, that's exactly what happens, Dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly what happened. Paul Skeens, for instance, you guys cool if I give this example. Paul Skeens, for example, we're sitting at the show, has 7 innings, no hit. Before he gets pulled from the game, Cody goes, I'm going Paul Skeens hunting. Leaves the booth, goes to another booth, gets an auto for like, I think it was like $300 under asking price from the guy because the guy had no idea that he was 7 innings into a no-hitter. And Cody was like, sweet, I'm going to go do that. You guys go buy it, come back to the table with $300 premium basically on the last comp essentially. And the guy just was throwing a no-hitter as it was happening. You immediately put it on your table to sell it to somebody else because knowledge is power in this scenario, and you knew that Skeens was going crazy. We did essentially the same thing, ended up washing a Skeens card, but it ended up like was a fun thing for us to be able to try to do that because for us, we have the 13% eBay fee all the time on things. The only time I ever don't move things on a percentage is if I'm moving them in on eBay. And even then, sometimes I'm doing gifts and services. So it's just a fun thing for me to have transactions without fees. And I can see how that's really the moneymaker at a show, considering your 20% margin you're talking about. Really, if I'm buying at a show, my 20% margin needs to also factor in the 13%. Because you're
just sitting at like 6, like you're sitting at like 7.
Exactly. Which 7% profit sometimes is fine and it's not a loss. But is it worth it?
So the first deal, this is probably a better example than the Skeens because we actually came home with the Skeens. But so the first day of the show, there's a buyer for a repacker that pays like 85%. He always comes up to me. We did a huge deal. It was actually less the show, but just because we've been going to a lot of shows recently. So I think the deal was like $10,000, and he comes back. He's like, "Hey, I need cash. Can you buy these 2 cards from me?" And it was like a Stroud Black Pandora Optic, and then a Wimby Prism Red, and both were graded. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And it was so I gave him $6,000 cash. And I just got up. I left Austin at the table, moved them for $6,500 in the span of like 20 minutes. So it's like, yes, I could have probably just left those at my table and maximized my profits over the course of the show, but I just made $500 in 20 minutes, like regardless if that's only like
so how'd you move
8%.
Where'd you go to?
I moved them to Brooks from Magic City Collectibles.
So you went to Brooks and you said 6,500, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
He's like, show me the comps. And I was like, okay. Well, showed him the comps. He's like, yep, sounds good to me. I'll write you a check. These were shop cards, so.
Wow. So, what were comps at?
I don't remember
Like
off the top. I know I
7,500?
stickered them right at comps. Well, the Stroud was like 2,100, and the Wimby was like a couple grand.
Huh.
But
So this guy bought them from you for not under comps.
oh yeah, he did. So I bought them from the guy because he was like desperate for cash, and we've done multiple deals before. So he's like, dude, I'll sell these to you at like 77% just because I need cash for like other things. Because he buys for a repacker. So let's say they only
Break that down.
so a repacker's like backyard's like a big one. Pull wax, basically any breaker basically offers repack products. So it's basically they just buy cards aftermarket and then put them in a product and build it out like it's like a hobby box or a hobby case. Which if done well, it's better than opening Panini or Topps products because you know your floor isn't going to be like a $5 auto on like a $500 box, right?
Yeah.
So he's selling to those people. And let's just say he probably bought those 2 cards and they're like, oh, we're not looking for anything that big right now. So he's like, oh crap, well, I need to sell these.
I'm stuck with them. Yeah.
And I need to buy stuff like under like 500 to $1,000. So he gets cash in hand to buy more cards that he knows he can instantly move.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Instead of holding on to them.
So what we're talking about here is this is high level strategy. This is high level strategy, and it's basically at a show premium. So for those of you that are watching, we know at Lefty Cards, we know we have a wide variety of exposure to the hobby. You know, we've got everything from interner to me to you, you know, like somewhere in the middle, you know, are most of our audience, probably somewhere honestly in the middle between me and Turner. And then we have some people between me and you, and then hopefully we've got some people that are you know, over you. And so
well, Cody's probably over me, and he was on last week.
Well, that's true, but I don't think Cody's listening to our show. So you know, no offense, but I just don't think he is chiming in. But to his little brother's podcast, you know, so but I would love it if Cody, if you are here, shout out. I did not mean anything.
There's no shot he's here right now.
No way. Okay, so we're talking about, this is high level stuff, and this is table and show strategy from a buying perspective. So there are some of you guys out there, you know, I'm always trying to put my head into who's listening to this podcast, a similar exposure to who's going to be your seller. If on the front end, if we've just lost you for 15 minutes, come back and just simply look at it and maybe do some table math on, you know, rewind it and do some table math. What we're essentially saying is, if you buy a card, you essentially need to buy it at 80% value of what a current comp is to make a flippable income instantly. Now that's not saying that the difference here is because normally when we talk about buys and sells, we don't necessarily talk about a percentage that you're trying to look to get into it, because we are relying on the 6 to 12 month cycle to grow our card's value over the 6 to 12 month cycle. Most of what we've done historically at nooffseason.com and the Sports Card Network content is we've said, buy these players. No one knows them yet. And then in 6 to 12 months, you will sell for a massive profit. We've got really good history of that, actually, where we've made good moves. But this is a different strategy. This is more like economics.
Mm-hmm.
This is a more traditional economic transaction logistics platform. This is simply a buying and selling of a sold good that is trying to move in and out of a particular X card, no matter the card, for $1 or $2 at the end of the day. So this is typical capitalism. This is typical, like, I have a good, I'm going to go sell it to the right buyer and be able to capitalize on my knowledge, not necessarily the card. And that's what this is. So it's a different kind of strategy for those that are listening to this podcast. And maybe if you guys are not going to shows, if you guys are not in person, if you're not doing deals on a no tax threshold platform, then this probably is not going to work for you unless you're going out there and you're putting massively low buy it now bids on these eBay cards, and you're getting them for 70% comps because people are just trying to move the cards on buy it now.
Right.
You're not going to get a 70% comp card on an auction, because if you buy the card at 70% comps on the auction, that's the new floor.
Yes.
Like, that's the new comp floor that people are going to check. So now you've just capped yourself.
Yes.
So this is an in-person, like, show type transaction, and we don't talk about that a whole lot on this platform until recently, because we've realized what the absolute goal would be at this show. So Paul and I looked over. We're pretty smart. Paul and I are smart guys. We understand money. We understand business. We look over and we're realizing that we think we're doing the show right. We think we're doing the show by getting exposure. We think we're doing the show right by putting our cards on the table. We're doing it right by, like, making relationships. And we look over and you guys are transacting thousands of dollars of cards in 6 hours. And Paul and I have made like maybe $400. And we're sitting there going, like, what are we doing wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
And the key was, we weren't buying. We were focused on selling.
Yes. So for people that we might have lost in this discussion that has kind of gone off the rails, but we're pulling it back. It's, if you don't go to shows, you're missing out on finding cards below comps, because it's very doable to find a lot of cards at a show to buy them at 75 to 80% of comps. That's like the target range, especially 75. You can get sub at 75%. Like, boom, you can move that to someone else at the show easily at 80. You take your 5%. Maybe you put that into something at the end of the day that you can take home and sit on for a couple months. That's usually like what I do. But yeah, like people, if you don't go to shows, or say you're too far from a show, right? Because let's just say you want to go to a Dallas show, but you don't want to spend money on the room because you don't know if you will sell enough cards, right? Plus table costs and all that. Well, you also have to counteract. You also have to counter in, like, hey, you're also buying stuff at like 20 to 25% below comps. And so, like, that bonus percent should also be seen as money that you are saving yourself, right? So it's kind of just like, not only selling at shows is good, but buying's like the best way to buy is at shows, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think it's changed the way that we are putting a strategy together. And so I have talked a lot about how I don't have a local show that is good. Let me just ask this: what's a table cost at the Dallas show?
I don't know, because we're like a sponsor deal, but I would assume it's probably like $500 for the weekend.
For the weekend?
Yeah.
So Lexington show this last weekend, I go to it. I'm driving there with my friend Ivan, or our friend Ivan, who's also in cards, and really, honestly, he calls me and it's like 10:30 in the morning. The show's been open for an hour. I was not even thinking about going to the show. I was watching the Monaco qualifying. He calls me and I'm like, yo, dude, what's up? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, still in my underwear watching F1, just like I was 5 years old, and he goes, you want to go to the card show? And I was like, no, because there are so many times I've gone to the Lexington card show and it's the same 5 dudes that are in there with the same 20 cards, and they're just talking about the Reds, and it's just, they're trading UK cards, and I'm just like, this isn't what I want to go to. But I'm like, you know what? I haven't seen my boy Ivan in a while, and I just came off of an absolute banger of a show in Dallas. And I'm like, okay, yeah, dude, let's go. Let's just go see it. We get there, pleasantly surprised, Krim. It was booming. I mean, it was like 2020 again in there. There was tables everywhere. There was like, they had fully rented the room, and they were running down the hallway at this point.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Like, just walking up, I was like, this is already better than I expected. I get in there and I'm buying cards for severely under comps. I'm like moving cards. I'm doing stuff that and I'm looking at the guys that I know that we have a history together of moving and buying cards from each other.
Right.
That from like when the bubble was hot, when I was going to the Lex show a lot. And I'm getting in and out of there. And I bought like probably $400 or $500 worth of cards from the Lexington Card Show, which is a lot of cards for me personally. And I felt really, really good about some of the moves we made. I got into Sebastian Walcott. I got into Lazaro Montes. I ended up finding a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card for under comps that looks really good. And I already sent it off to PSA. If that comes back a 9 or a 10, I'm going to make like probably $250 on that move. So I was able to do some stuff in the show that I was really proud of because of the experience that I got with you guys in Dallas. But that's a small town show. Lexington, of course, it's not a small town show. I'm not, we're not in Canyon, Texas at this show. It's Lexington, Kentucky. But this is a smaller show. This is not a regional show. This is not the Dallas Card Show, not even Louisville or Cincinnati. Like those two shows are bigger than the Lexington show. And I was still able to make good money and good moves at this show because of what I learned talking to you guys. So that's what we're trying to express is there is massive buying opportunities if you're going to small shows. The thing that you need to be prepared for at small shows is people will be selling way over comps because I know what I got type thing. And you just keep moving. Don't worry about that.
Yep.
If they're not willing to come down to you, here's a story. So I had been at the Lexington Card Show for about an hour and a half, spent most of the money that I wanted to I actually didn't even expect to spend money at the Lexington show. So I spent, $500-$600, and I get to this table and it's got all sorts of parallels of rookie quarterbacks, for next season. It's got Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Levis, all these guys, it's got all the cards that we've been talking about. Right. And I'm like, okay, I'm checking comps and he's like $40 or $50 over comps on every single card. And I'm like, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
And so I'm like checking it. I'm standing at his table for a while and he's doing the whole like crossed arms thing. And I'm like, so I set my phone down. I'm like, look, dude, you're really over comps on most of these cards. And he's like, I know what I got. And I was like, okay, that's fair. Here's what I want to offer you. Will you come down to at your comps or lower? So I'm not even offering 80% here. I'm offering at comps on all of these cards if I buy all of them. I was literally like, I'm going to buy he had like 40 cards. And I was like, I'm going to buy everything. It was going to be probably $2,000-ish. And I was like, I'm going to buy everything because I can move all of this in 3 months for more than it's worth right now. Because it wasn't all as like it was the right card, the right players, ungraded
at the right time.
At the right time. And so I wasn't buying under, and so I was like, I'm risking it by buying a lot into here, but I'm like, this is what we've preached. And the guy goes, not even close, bro. Not even close. And I was like, okay, just hear me out. I'm paying for everything you have for at comps. And you don't want to move it. And he goes, no, I just sold like half this table for like $30 over comps. And I was like, well, those dudes are idiots. And personally, you're an idiot. Have a nice day. So the guy had a chance to make $2,000 on 25 cards and said no. And maybe he wants to hold. Maybe he wants to hold because he understands in 3 months he can sell for more than that. But I just thought it was a bad move on his part. And it would have been a very different episode had I come into the episode saying, I just dropped $2,500,
But good news, based off my experience at Dallas shows, is usually you will have new people come in and you can't like strike a deal with any of them. And those are the people that usually aren't at the next show or / you never see them again. So.
Yeah, I mean, he really did. Like, he wasn't a guy that I knew. He wasn't a guy that I'd ever seen before. And it was a guy with a fairly small table. 25 cards on a table is actually not that much. But you knew he knew what he was doing because he had the right cards on the table.
Right.
But it was just like, maybe he just was like, and it was getting kind of late in the show too. So maybe he was just, that's why I thought this was gonna bang.
Yeah.
And this guy was gonna walk away with 0 cards and $2,000 in his pocket.
Right. But also the good thing about smaller shows is you don't really have like as many sharks there like as there is in Dallas.
Yeah.
So like you can find.
Now what there's not in Lexington is there's not the table to table movement.
Yes.
That's super unique to what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do that on a massive scale, because you can't really, it's kind of awkward if you're buying a card from one guy and then going to the next booth and selling it.
Yeah.
You got to go like, you
Whereas
got to
in
go.
Dallas, that's norm.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's
And
like, I know
you
you're
go
gonna
40 feet and no one ever sees you again.
It's like, no, I'm not doing this deal with you because I know you're just gonna sell it to someone else's table. So
All right, well, let's jump into another commercial and then we'll come back.
Kendall, are these people ready to start grading their sports cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today.
CGC. Man, we have some good news coming on CGC front from a nooffseason.com perspective. That's as much tea as I'm going to give you, but we are having fun working with those guys. We are enjoying our partnership there, and yeah, it's going well. So that's all the tea that I'm going to give to you. Let's get to our deep cuts, Krim. We're 45 minutes into this show, only 25 minutes behind, but I believe that we have some good stuff ahead of us, where we're going to talk about the four main sports. And in typical fashion, our deep cuts, if you're a first-time listener here, or if you're stumbling on our live show, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube, drop us a follow. We'd love to hear from you. Even drop us a comment. We'll be able to see those. Live comments we do interact with, so definitely do that. But we're fixing to go into our deep cuts, where we talk about some deep cuts in the four main sports that you're not necessarily thinking or talking about mostly. So, Krim, let's start with football here. And you've talked commonly. We can just transition from that because we just talked about the elite quarterbacks and that will sell well in a couple of months. So I see you're pulling up your screen here.
Yes.
I'm sure you got some stuff that you want to show. So take it away.
Okay. I'm trying to show it. Is that a you thing? Okay, there it goes. All right. So, as you can see on the screen, now I will preface this with saying we're in football buying season. I don't think you can go wrong with buying the elite quarterbacks, especially if you're going with shows, getting stuff below comps, sitting on them for 2 to 4 months, selling them in during the hype, or moving them at the national, where football will probably be buzzing. So I preface that quarterback's always the safest, most proven way to go. But today we're going to talk about Marquise Brown, and I think that one of the most overlooked / underlooked moves that happened in the NFL this offseason was Marquise Brown going to the Chiefs. And as well as they drafted Xavier Worthy in the first round, and you also have Rashee Rice being suspended. So there's a lot of movement going around in the Chiefs receiver room. But Marquise Brown is the one proven entity that they have. So I wanted to talk about him. As you can see, so this graph right here, this is his PSA 10 Silver Prism rookie. He's in 2019. So we are looking at this card right here.
Okay.
So Silver Prism, pretty basic. As you can see on this graph on the right, he has already seen a jump due to the offseason. I don't know if it was a trade or a sign, but based off his addition to the Chiefs. So you see his Prism Silver moving, but what I thought was interesting was you see his National Treasures RPAs that I talked about last week as a deep cut for position players. So we're bringing that back to last week. We're taking multiple lessons, combining it into one. His National Treasures RPAs haven't seen much movement. As you see here, March 25th, PSA 9, out of 25, 115, 127 for an out of 25. And then this is the out of 9 that did 100. So as you can see, like, They're pretty constant. There wasn't really an out of 99 sale. So out of 99 sale, March 14th, one sold for 160. And then this sold for 100 in a PSA 9. They should be worth about the same. So you for one, this is a fixed price. So this was probably bought on the news of it happening, and it has trickled down somewhat. So it's funny because his silver PSA 10s are up. His NTRPAs didn't see much movement, but the movement that we did see they're starting to slowly already come down from the move. And then another callback to last week, his Kaboom did 250. And I said last week, anytime you can get someone's NT RPAs for less than their Kabooms, I think you should pull the trigger on it.
Out of 99.
If they're a good player, yes. So as you can see, his
break
Kaboom
down
last
again
sold
why
for
the out of
250.
99 is the sought after.
So the out of 99 is the hobby considers it the true National Treasures RPA. That's gonna be one of their best rookie cards that will ever come out. And so it's like that because, for instance, let me pull this up. Now, this is 2019. 2019 was a weird design. But you see this out of 15 is like a green, right? People don't really like the green or the red on National Treasures. They just like the
unless it's
classic
team color.
Yeah. They just like the classic out of 99 design. Hollow. It's really a hollow design. And then the out of 10s will be gold. People like those. And then obviously your 1/1 shields and all that is a different beast of its own.
Yeah.
So I think these Marquise Brown NTRPAs offer some interesting opportunities, as he is potentially going to be Mahomes' number one receiver, and we've seen him put up numbers with Lamar Jackson thrown to him. Now let's double the amount of passing yards that Mahomes is going to get as opposed to Lamar Jackson, and he could be a very sneaky wide receiver one this year.
Very sneaky wide receiver one, and he's on the best offense in the league. He's got one of the most trusted quarterbacks in the league, and Valdez-Scantling on that team dropped the ball like absolute crazy. Yes. They could not. That he was the exact same thing. He was trying to be the deep threat, take the top off, but he's going to drop the ball like crazy. Now, if Marquise, if Brown can hold on to the ball, then this guy is going to have an insane year. And Travis Kelce is continuing to fall off.
Yes. And
Rice is not there, who was the receiver that had the most yards last year for the Chiefs. It's gonna happen on that way. So Brendan says, "Hey, I see my sale. Should have listened to Krim and not sold." So that's what I'm talking about. Brendan is literally seeing his sale of an RPA live on your computer. Pretty hilarious. But Brendan, we hope that you got money, and if you're positive, we would just say that's fine. Like there are good buying and selling opportunities, but if you're positive on a card, I always say,
then it doesn't matter.
It's free for you to move it. If you're negative on a card, then you've got to be really strategic. So we're back to RPAs out of 99. That's something that I've learned recently. Like everybody can learn stuff on this show, because I have learned recently from you, Chase, that the out of 99 RPA is something that's pretty sought after. It is the card to go get. I would have gotten that out of 15 and stretched for that.
Right.
That's what I would have done. And so, because that's just how it goes. But also in the baseball world, out of 250, purples don't sell nearly as well as the out of 499.
They're like slightly above the 499s, even though
exactly. I mean, the speckle out of 99 doesn't sell as well as the true blues out of 150. So it's like there are certain parallels that the hobby has gravitated towards, and the hobby itself has started, like the manufacturers have started putting more parallels out there. We don't even want to talk about all the Prism parallels that they have. So there are certain parallels, and there are certain numbers that people are looking for in their search queues. Like I guarantee you, there is thousands of people in the hobby that already have saved on their eBay search query RPA out of 99.
Yes.
And they just hit that every single day, seeing where deals are at. So even if it isn't out of 15, it's not even going to show up on that guy's radar. So great assessment there. Let's hit basketball real quick.
All right, basketball, pretty plain and pretty cut and dry. Oh, that's your email.
Hello.
That you sent to me.
Thank
Gonna
you.
get doxxed.
Showing that to everybody.
So as we are officially going into the basketball season, I think that viewers should be more focused on the legit superstars that are proven, because you will see their prices go down. And if prices are going down, you want to make sure you're into that top tier guys whose prices are going to go up first and the most. Although, so like a couple weeks I endorsed the Benedict Mathurin. I still do, because he's just so cheap that you can get like $10 autos that you should just go for it. So last week, Cody mentioned LaMelo Ball. On the cusp of becoming a superstar, that's who I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for guys who are on the cusp of superstardom. Maybe they're already there and they just don't get acknowledged, as like we saw Anthony Edwards become everyone's saying Anthony Edwards is the new face of the league. So we're looking at guys who can potentially become the face of the league, right? And who better to become the face of the league than the guy who's actually leading the postseason in points per game this year at over 33 points per game in the playoffs, Joel Embiid. Arguably a top 3 player in the league, most definitely a top 5. And we are watching his prices drop. I would ignore this one right here because it's obviously shilled, because it's like over double the last one. But I'm gonna pull up this little chart over here,
and it's Probstein.
So if you ever see a sus comp on Probstein, it's probably shilled, because what Probstein is they're a consigner. So a bunch of people send them cards to sell on eBay for them. He sends them PayPal, whatever, so like they don't have to spend time listing stuff. But what people do is they'll send them the Probstein, and then they'll bid on their own stuff to get their prices up, and then they get the card back and they sell out their shield comp. But we're looking, so like right here, if you follow my mouse, this is like where the season starts last year. So we're looking at like 141, 130, like 146. We're looking at that 140 range, right? As you can see now, there's been several sales around 100, slightly below 100. Like I said, again, that's the one that's like completely shilled. So don't even pay attention to it. But I think if you can get in below $100 for a Prism PSA 10, that's the way to go. Now it's 2014, so his silvers are going to be a lot more expensive because there's way less of them. But again, like just using like off season, like last season as a measure of where this card can potentially go. If you're just like selling off of the hype, if you get in at 100 and then sell at like 140, 145, that's like your target of what it should be. And if you hold longer, obviously you have a potential of it seeing a performance spike. But I know we just like to play the smart game, buying when it's low, selling when it's high, take the performance risk out. So that's an easy 40% margin right there. If you can find that card at a show, that's even more, right?
Where do you think this card, where's the floor on this card?
So
over the next 3 months.
Right. So even if you go back 2 years, we're looking at the floor right now.
Right. But like, look 3 months into the future.
Right.
Basketball is going to stop.
I mean, I don't see it going below 80.
Okay.
It could, but like again, like also we might also be at the floor now, because you've seen it bottom out several different times, but it never goes below 100.
Yeah.
And this is December of last year, so it's not like it's crashed. Like it's obviously crashed after COVID, but it hasn't gone down lower than where it is now.
Yeah, you're seeing it go. It just broke through a line of resistance of that $100.
All right, and it's a pop 1700, so it's not super rare. but it's also very findable, if that's a word.
Sure.
And then obviously I'll just click on this, see if I can find a silver.
Right there.
Which you see the silvers are way down, and it's still $580.
So would you recommend getting into that one?
If you have the money, yes. I'd always consider the silver over the base just because it's shorter printed. So there's less of them. It's always going to be more desired. Especially when you see the drop off like this. That's pretty insane. So yeah, I think I just did the Prism base because I know that's more of the range of our audience. But if you are a bigger spender, I would also recommend the silver.
Nice. Love that. So Embiid, the one thing you got to worry about here, yes, he is a top 3 to 5 player in the NBA. The thing you got to worry about is you're not going to get the postseason hype again that everyone has previously had on him because no one believes in him as in the postseason right now.
Right.
No one believes that he's going to make an Eastern Conference final as Halliburton has more Eastern Conference finals than he does at this point, which
I will say he averaged over 30 this postseason, and that was with him being hurt.
Yes.
So I think points
are not the problem for Embiid.
Right. Watch out for the Sixers making some moves this offseason because they have 2 legit pieces in Embiid and Maxey. And if they can just find some solid guys around them, I mean, the Sixers could be just as dangerous as the Celtics, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably more.
With their 1-2 punch.
Yeah. I like their 1-2 punch better. They just have a deeper team, I think.
Yes.
And Embiid just not healthy this year. Like going into the playoffs, basically riding a 3-horse stallion, like that's just not going to work, And so, So before we jump to the next 2 sports, let's hit our next ad, and then we will jump right back in.
Yo, Lefty, we use a lot of data, don't we? Well, I just want everyone to know that they can get the same data we get by signing up at marketmoversapp.com. Sign up at marketmoversapp.com today, but use the promo code NOOFFSEASON to save 20% after a free 14-day trial. That's marketmoversapp.com, promo code NOOFFSEASON.
Thanks, man. Thanks,
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Man, I'm glad he's listening to the show today. We just cut to him.
We need to have him start his ads with, "Hi, I'm Paul."
Hi, I'm Paul.
Like the old Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that thing. Probably is like some copyright infringement, but it would be hilarious. That's on the end of Jimmy Neutron for those of you guys that are not tuned in to what
Nickelodeon has bigger fish to fry at the moment
than Paul Hickey.
Hi, I'm Paul. 5-second copyright.
And so we talked about football, we've talked about basketball. I'm gonna jump to baseball real quick, and because the soccer discussion today is going to end up being probably the premier discussion for the end of the episode, and then we're going to probably end there because it's less of a deep cut and more of a discussion base. So let's jump into baseball real quick. First off, I want to acknowledge that Acuna tore his ACL on his left knee yesterday. And immediately when that stuff happens, I look at my fantasy team and I cry because I have Acuna in almost every league. But then the next thing I do is I think, okay, how can I get into some Acuna cards? Right. Because like big injuries happen a lot. And when they do happen, you have to be aware of how the market is going to reflect on these things. So let me pull up what I was looking at earlier with Acuna. Actually, I don't have it, so give me just a second. I'm going to bring up Acuna's numbers.
All right, I'll fill in the void.
Yeah, there you go.
So what Lefty is saying is it's very unfortunate when our favorite superstars get hurt, whether that's Acuna, Burrow every year, etc. But it creates some very interesting buying opportunities.
Thank you, Krim. Now that I have got it pulled up, we're going to share my screen here. We're going to go to the Acuna Bowman Chrome Auto. This is his base auto, PSA 10. There's pop 127. Actually, love the pop count on this card. The fact that there's only 127 of them really makes me want to move into them bad. Because so this is his all-time, all-data chart. The first time anyone got into this card as a PSA 10, it sold for $286. That is incredible. I want to meet that person and say, how did you get into a Acuna card
sir.
for $269 in 2017? Congratulations. Because I hope that it's this person that ended up selling it at $8.5K later in 2021. Of course, we've seen the bubble. We've seen all of our charts that we've pulled up over the past 6 months. It's very easy to see the 2021 bubble. We're not focused on that anymore. But the reason why I have to bring this up is Acuna is 4 years off. Within 4 years, he's had 2 massive knee surgeries at this point. He tore his right ACL crashing into the wall in 2021, and he tore his left ACL trying to extend to steal third base last night or 2 nights ago, and he's torn his left ACL now. We have seen how he does come back healthy, and he does come back just as prolific as before. So I'm not worried about Acuna long term, other than if he does get some more significant knee injuries, we're going to have to look at the Mike Trout effect on him, where it's like, how is the long-term durability going to play in? But this guy is young enough to where he's still insanely athletic and insanely he's got the build as well to pull back on athleticism and still be an elite player. Like, he can pull back on some of the like if he's not playing in the field every day, if he's not
like even if they
70.
DH him, he's still gonna hit 40 home runs.
This guy stole 70 bags or something last year.
It was 40. He was 40-70, right? 40 home runs,
so like
70
he doesn't have to steal 70 bags. Like they could be like, hey, hit 50 home runs and steal 30. and then he's like, oh, okay, durability. Like that's just how Acuna has that in his bag. But what I want to look at here is he tore his right Achilles July 20th, 2021. This sale right here coming off the bubble was 7 days before he tore his ACL, and it fell from 8K to 4K, 4.5K. That's bubble related. That is not injury related. 7 days after this, he tears his Achilles or he tears his ACL. The next sale is 7 days after that. So you can't argue that it was like the comp was already, or the sale was already out there and it was finished the 7-day auction. It's 7 days after the injury. So he was already clearly hurt and you missed a whole eBay cycle there. It sells for 3.21K. And then you see people trying to jump in on the hype of him being down. That's what I think is interesting here. When you see players get injured and people believe in them long term, usually after they get injured, it's like people are like trying to snatch them up like hungry hippo.
Right.
People are just like chomp, chomp, chomp. Give me some Acuna. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sell in the next pretty much week. Then it climbs back up, and then it's come down even when he won his MVP, which is kind of crazy. But that's all the market cycle. But then we see his cards way down. 428 last month, this card was at 1.68. And if we look at any that are currently in the current sale prices, let's see. Can we go back to this? Come on, market movers. No, I don't need help.
No, maybe.
I don't need help as I'm trying to find this.
So I'll fill in the void again until you get to where you need to be.
There's no auctions up right now. So Thank you for filling the void. There's no auctions up right now. All of them are at 2.3, 2.5, 3, 3. And obviously
none of those are going to sell.
None of those are going to sell. What they need to do is you need to have your auctions turned on. And if any one of these hits auction in the next week or two, you need to be buzzing in on that. Because if you can get any sort of, let's see, it fell from, let's say it fell about $1,000 last time, 1.3, so I'm going to say that the next recent comp will probably not be that drastic. It'll probably be around the $1,000 range, I would assume. If you can get into this card for around 1,000, 1,200, it hasn't been that low since 2020. Which is crazy that card was that low in 2020, especially with people moving into the hobby at that rate. But Acuna is somebody that I want to look at because of his ACL tear. If some of these go on auction for around 1,000, or if Chase, you are at a show and you can see one for around 1,000, give me a call. And I want to move into an Acuna around $1,000. I think that's easy money here, and I would love to hold Acuna for the long term. Okay,
Kendall, can I add something to this?
Yes.
Argument of basically us saying this is a buy. So the current price is at 16, right? I would argue that Juan Soto is probably the closest guy to Acuna as far as cards go, / just on the field comparison.
Okay.
And it looks like his last 2 PSA 10 autos are at like 2,900. Is Market Mover showing the same thing? Yep. So we are seeing
graph, by the way, incredible comparison.
So even if, let's just say, because I would say up until this point, Acuna's been better. But what's the bottom that Juan Soto has been? Can you tell me that?
1.4 in recent comps, and all time it's
right. Well, before 2021 doesn't. So we've seen Juan Soto already bounce back from his bottom sale.
Yep.
And so, like, what I'm trying to say is Acuna will probably do the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, they're both young. They're both young, prolific stars on arguably some of the most marketable teams in baseball. Everyone loves the Braves because of how they marketed themselves through the 80s and 90s. Everyone loves the Yankees because, it's just the Yankees. Right. I hate the Yankees, by the way, so not everyone loves
I also hate the Yankees.
Okay, not everyone, but the Yankees. We'll say that. And so Juan Soto, recovering from his horrific experience in San Diego, he made a bunch of people mad leaving the Nationals, and then he comes up. He also looks 12 years old in his prospect auto.
His helmet's too big for him.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But I think that Acuna right here is an absolute buy, and maybe not even on the top end. Right. I think if you're going to look at some of his Bowman Chrome firsts, I looked at them earlier, but I think they're around $60-$70 right now. If you can get into one at $40-$50 right now, I think that would still be something I would end up moving into, because of course it is going to be about a year-long hold. You have to be realistic about that. Right. You have, or maybe not even a year-long hold. You could probably even sell it during spring training next year.
Yeah, I would say target spring training. And as you can see, the little bottom, like the lowest sale, not Acuna, looks like it's in December of 22. Like, you have until December to get this card, I would say.
But I would say just put this on your radar, make it an eBay search, save it as a search, and just monitor it. Now, we have thousands of listeners here at the Lefty Card Show, so we're all going to be bidding against each other, Chase. But we
just need multiple cards to
need multiple cards to hit
before December.
Multiple cards of Pop 127. So anyway, that's not the baseball player I actually really wanted to talk about, but I think it is a compelling argument. The guy that I do want to talk about is a guy that I have talked about previously, and I actually have a TikTok video up about this player from when we were releasing content around prospects in prospect releases. Davison De Los Santos is a guy that I am really high on right now. He's a guy that is in this Arizona farm system, and it is a stacked farm system, and he's coming in currently. Now, this is MLB, not just baseball, which is where I like to do prospect rankings, but at MLB.com, they have him ranked as the 14th best prospect in the Diamondback organization. I can 100% tell you with 100% certainty that he will be 10 spots higher than that in the next rebrand.
Right.
He will be in a large mover over the next couple of months, because his AAA numbers, he just got pulled up there. He's 21 years old in AAA right now, and he's 126 WRC plus. He's at 16% K rate. He's at 12% walk rate. He's at a 318 average. He destroyed AA on his second appearance in AA. This guy is a guy that is a guy that I liked initially, and I love now. So Davison De Los Santos is a guy that people were going into breaks expecting to get Drew Jones in their Arizona Diamondbacks cards, and they got Davison De Los Santos and were upset about it. So these cards are available because people have already moved them
Yes.
a lot. And because of he was not the chase in the product, and people would end up getting an Arizona Diamondback, but it wasn't the Drew Jones they wanted. I am here to argue, Chase, that Davis and De Los Santos will have a similar price to Drew Jones in the next year. He won't move as much, but he will move in comparison more appropriately now than he did previously. Now,
Also, if I can plug someone we're close friends with, shout out to Colby from the Just Baseball team for giving us our Fangraphs formula. Obviously, you can add or subtract things you don't like, but Davis and De Los Santos has been in that formula before his Bowman cards even came out.
Yep.
So I've been waiting for this guy to get cards, and obviously it came out 23 Bowman. Give it some time for the new release to drop some, and now I think we're in the optimal buying. Also, fun fact, he has pro debut cards for the Amarillo Sod Poodles. So
come on, Saudis. So what I'm looking at here, and if you guys are online with us, plug into what we've got a Market Movers page up, and I've pulled up several different Arizona Diamondbacks players. The Diamondbacks are going to have good publicity over the next couple of years. They just made the World Series. Corbin Carroll, unfortunately, is struggling this year, but they will be back because they have stables and stables of top talent. And they have, so we'll just pull back up the D-backs MLB rankings. Jordan Lawler, we've talked about him already. He's going to be, he's going to be a really good major leaguer. No, not interested in talking about his cards today. Tommy Troy, going to be a very good major leaguer. We've got Ivan Melendez at 8. The reason I put him in here is he's got a similar profile to De Los Santos. They both play third and first, even though Davison plays first more primarily. They're going to end up the same profile. They're both the same size, essentially. Davison actually a little bit smaller, but he's 4 years younger as well. So
right.
Ivan Melendez,
which
and
matters a lot.
Matters a ton. And then I did put Drew Jones on this graph as well because I think it's important. So we're going to bring up this graph again. Let me get rid of the Acuna and get rid of the Juan Soto stuff. And this is the 365-day charts of 4 PSA 10 players from the Arizona Diamondbacks. For some reason, Tommy Troy's numbers are incredible in the pop count, which is funny. Like 127 or 197.
Great, Tommy Troy.
Everybody loves Tommy Troy, but that's also funny because his numbers have gone down pretty significantly, and he's the number 2 prospect. Now look at their number 14 overall prospects numbers. He started off. The first sale was $70. The second sale, $51 for a PSA 10 auto. That auto is currently worth $143. Wow. No one knows who he is, and he's still at $143. Drew Jones right now is at $217. Drew Jones is a shell of a man in comparison. Right. He just has the name recognition, which there is value in selling the name recognition.
Can I offer you? Can you plug someone into this graph that I think is very comparable to Davis and Dale? Can you compare Junior Caminero?
Yes.
Now, I think this is his ceiling.
Come on. There we go. Junior Caminero auto. Here we go. So $368 is where Junior Caminero is currently at. Now, when he got called up in last year in September, let's see, blah, 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 blah. What is it right here? Yeah. That card went to $600.
So would you say that right there is like the ceiling we want to see from Davis and De Los Santos?
Absolutely. That's got to be the ceiling. And I don't think he's going to get there because he doesn't have the prospect hype that Caminero had.
But Caminero could rise in the rankings because he is having a magnificent year.
My thing is, I think he's going to get to the major leagues before he ends up having the prospect hype.
Right.
So I don't know if we're going to see the $600 high, the $600 high end on this, but I do think we see $250 on this. I do think we see maybe $350 on this. Davison is going to rise, and he's been steadily rising because people are seeing that he's a proven player. And when you look at his numbers, when you look at his scale, when you look at his player profile, when you look at who's on the Arizona Diamondbacks right now, this guy is primed for a good selling opportunity in the future. The only thing I don't like about him per se is his autos are horrific.
Yes, they're
Like,
always in the bottom left.
They're just terrible. Like, if you guys can see this card, what is this? It's literally covering the top certified sticker, but sick photo. Him shushing the crowd as he's coming around the base, got the juice, obviously. And I do want to point out that I made a video about him on TikTok. I brought that up earlier. Davison saw the video and liked the video on TikTok and was like, and sent us a little message and was like, people are sleeping. This guy has a chip on his shoulder, and I think he's got an even bigger chip on his shoulder knowing that nobody respects him yet in this organization. I think he loves the fact that he's 14th on this Arizona Diamondbacks list on MLB.com. Davison will be a guy that's a heavy mover in the future, and he's a guy that I like as a deep cut. What do you think about that, Krim? You like that?
I love it. Like I said, he's been on my radar for before his autos even came out, so I love the pick here.
There you go.
Now, it looks like I've lost by not buying him as soon as the product came out, but
don't worry, I sold one, so
I still have faith.
I already sold one, so you're not in my bucket. I liked him, and then I was like, I'm a little afraid that he's going to have some attrition, and it's going to be a long runway, and then he just flew through the minor leagues. So I already am going to have to buy into a card that I sold a long time ago. So you don't love that. So okay, let's remove the graph. Now let's go into the final talk about for the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Ooh.
So we're going to go into the very last commercial here, and then we're going to talk about soccer.
Lefty, we say that breaking is not necessarily a sports card strategy, but there's a lot of great things going on Whatnot other than breaking. They now have singles auctions and an improved overall experience on their platform. I want everyone to know that they can get $15 free on Whatnot by joining Whatnot through this URL. Go to whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. That's whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. Lefty, back to you.
Thanks, Paul. Brian Steeler 714. Love the interaction here. It's been a long time since I talked to you. He said those De Los Santos autos look like nobody was around to correct him. That's what I'm saying. That is the only thing I don't like about this card. But what I have seen over the long haul is bad autos still sell well if it's the right player. It doesn't matter.
AKA George Pickens.
George Pickens is definitely one of them. Dak Prescott doesn't have the most lovely autos that I've ever seen.
Well, a lot of his were fake his rookie year. So.
Well, there you go. So there's just some out there that are just not good. And that now don't get an auto grade. That's a different discussion. Yeah. But we will be still buying De Los Santos in the future. All right, let's jump to soccer. Now, Krim, I want to have this debate with you because from most of the times we've talked, you say that you're not experienced as a soccer viewer.
Yes. But this might be good because I'm probably more like majority of the sports card community.
So I know you've seen the show notes, but I want to have this discussion with you. This is a classic discussion that we used to have all the time in like the 2010 to 20 or probably 2008 to 2011 era. This was a discussion at every single dorm room table if they liked soccer at all.
Right.
Like every single dorm room was talking about this. One guy was on one side, one guy was on the other. It was just the most stark debate that I remember in my college years of like people were arguing for hours and you would get nowhere. Who is better, Messi or Ronaldo? It's a classic debate, but the debate has severely fallen off over the last couple of years for
Yes.
several reasons. And there are multipliers all over the place that you could point to say, this is why, this is why, this is why, this is why. You can build a narrative to why it has happened the way it has. I'm going to offer another perspective. I think you can actually also offer a different perspective with the same data. I think you can actually paint a narrative differently than the media is painting in the same way. Now, in 2011, 2015, I have to admit, I had a Ronaldo flag in my dorm room. I was a huge Ronaldo fan. Hated Barcelona. Hated I hated when they got Suarez. I did not want Neymar to go there. So generally speaking, I let my hatred of the actual team around him deflate my perspective on Messi. Lionel Messi goes to PSG and his value falls off essentially. He's still the GOAT, but his value was not what Barcelona was. And everybody was like, what's going on? He goes to play with Neymar and Mbappe, and we didn't see him win anything that and everything that he can, all that stuff, all that happens. Then he moves to Miami, and we see the world come unglued. He wins a World Cup. Argentina goes bananas. He is officially stamped as the GOAT of soccer, and it's like the debate is officially over. I don't know where we got the narrative that Ronaldo is essentially dead. It's like everybody's just like, okay, Ronaldo has ended everything. As I was watching soccer today, Ronaldo just set another Saudi Arabian record for what he's done. Now, I know that comes with an asterisk of, well, it's a Saudi Arabian record. Yes. But he has now become the all-time goals leader for a season in 4 different divisions of top-flight soccer. He has played in England, he has played in Spain, he has played in Portugal, he has played in Italy, and now Saudi Arabia. And he has been, besides in Portugal when he was technically a youth player, he was at the top of his performance at every single level. This man has the most appearances. These are records that Ronaldo holds. He has the most appearances, he has the most goals, and he has the most assists in Champions League soccer, and he has not been in the Champions League in some time. He has goals in European Championship, international goals, and international appearances. And I don't think he's necessarily done there either. I think all this to say that I don't think Ronaldo is necessarily done playing internationally. I don't think he's retired. Now, you might check me on that. But he sets another record at Al Nassr today. And then now he's on his way to another contract with Al Nassr potentially that will take him over his 40th birthday at playing at Al Nassr. Now, let me offer a different narrative. Let me say that he doesn't end up signing another contract at Al Nassr. His contract goes out in 2025, and at the summer of 2025, a year from now, he could technically be done in Saudi Arabia. Now, let me say he comes to the MLS. Potentially, he comes to Inter Miami. His cards would go bananas, Krim. All of a sudden, all he would have to do is change leagues and people would start buying him again. I think this is a media discrepancy between the two players. I want to offer this unique discussion on why I think that there's not enough Ronaldo hype and why Ronaldo is, in fact, my deep cut for today, is because there was once rousing discussions between Messi and him, and seemingly Messi has rode off into... Now, people would say, oh, Messi's just crushed him over the last 5 years. And I would honestly agree with that. Here's the linchpin here. Actually, I want to show you some charts first. Let me show you some charts first. So this is my favorite place to get soccer data. It's transfermarket.com. We've talked about this a lot. This is Cristiano Ronaldo's transfer market data. This is his chart when he was worth 120 million. Several times in his career, from the age of 28 to 30, and then he was at 32 years old. He hit that $120 million mark again. Sold to Juventus, sold to Manchester United. Now he's at El Nassr. Supposedly his value is at $15 million. Now, if you go and look at Messi's current value is at $30 million. And so people are like, wow, twice as valuable? Is that where we're at right now? When we look at card data, do we need to say that he is twice as valuable? Is Messi twice as valuable as Ronaldo, even in the card scene, Krim? Because when we look at this data, this is their bona fide rookie cards. Their bona fide most chased, highest grossed cards from what I have seen. Now,
Right.
Check me on this if I'm wrong. But it's the 2002 Panini Sports Mega Cracks Ronaldo, and then the 2004 Panini Mega Cracks Messi, 71 specifically. The last sale of the Messi was at $322,000. Incredible amount of money. The last sale from a Cristiano Ronaldo, $62.6 thousand. Still an incredible amount of money, and more money than I will know what to do with. If I put a $62,000 payment down on a sports card, we will be living, my friend. But that's like 1/3, essentially, or actually less than, of the value of Messi. Is he 1/3 as bad? Here's what I want to argue. In 2021, I went to my first national. This will be my fourth national this year coming up. 2020, I think, was my first national. I remember in 2021, I was in a back room at Chicago, I believe, was where we were at. I saw a Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks PSA 10, this specific card. I remember looking at it, and I remember saying, just curious, my friend, what are you asking for that? The man said $300,000. And I about lost my ever-loving mind.
Right.
Because the last comp at that point would have been $230,000. The next sold was like after that guy, maybe it was even that guy, was at $281,000. And that was at the high point. This card is now $62,000. Now, with the data that I've already given you, what is your perspective here? Are you just simply saying he's just not as good? Are you simply saying, is the MLS better marketed than the Saudi Arabian League? Are you simply saying Messi is 3 times as good as Cristiano Ronaldo? Krim, as the average viewer, before I get to the actual linchpin of where I want this argument to end up, I want to give you an opportunity to say your piece on the data that I've just given you on the overall Cristiano Ronaldo market. Of course, we're taking one card here,
Right.
The highest card, which maybe isn't fair. Maybe isn't fair for his overall market. But what I'm saying is, for these two players, as an average viewer, are you willing to say that Messi is 3 times as valuable as Cristiano Ronaldo, even in the card market?
Also, this is like 5x, not 3x.
Well, there you go. 5 times. That makes my argument even more.
5x.
Even more.
I mean, I would say no. That Messi shouldn't be 5x Ronaldo.
That's where you're gonna leave it. No embellish, just no.
So obviously, you see those two sales that like are almost intertwined with each other. You see that there was a Messi and a Ronaldo sale like around the same time that almost did the same.
Yeah, 2021.
So it's like, for me, just looking at the data, like you could just erase what cards these were, just looking at the graphs. I would assume that someone went to jail for inappropriate conduct for that price difference to change.
Right.
Because we see Messi's hasn't really changed that much.
Nope.
Since then, and Ronaldo's just fallen off a cliff.
Yep.
Which I assume part of that is Messi won a World Cup and kind of submitted himself as the #1 GOAT, and Ronaldo also signed to Saudi, which people probably look at it as a money grab.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say no, Ronaldo should definitely be closer to Messi. Can we scale this down to like 9s and 8s so we can see like a more realistic card?
Here, I'll just add the 9s and 8s as well.
Or take the 10s off and then do 9s, so we're not looking at like different things. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's just keep scaling it down. Okay, well, Ronaldo doesn't have any sales on the 9 in forever. Maybe let's try 8s.
Yeah. Okay, we can do 8s.
8s look promising.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, so that's interesting.
It is interesting. Last sales, they were $1,200 apart.
So does that warrant Messi's let me ask you this, because this is saying the hobby places a premium on the number one greatest of all time for his greatest card of all time, because that's where we're seeing the premium.
This is the okay. Say that again. Sorry.
So what I said is the hobby seems to be placing a premium on the best card of the best player of all time.
Yes. Now look at this, Krim. This is a PSA 5.
Right. And it seems to follow the same trajectory for the most part. No?
Ronaldo's more valuable.
Oh my.
You see,
so basically what you're saying is if I had $250,000, I need to buy a Ronaldo Mega Cracks PSA 10.
Yes, essentially that is what I'm saying. Now you're seeing live, we're putting this narrative together live. What I prepared previously to when the show happened is I just looked at the big data. Now we're looking at a PSA 5. What I'm trying to do here is say, okay, let's get around the $1,000 mark. Okay, a PSA 3 of this card is $1,000. Okay, so we're still seeing a premium on Ronaldo's cards here, and the pop count is not that far off. Right. So it's like, I mean, it's actually double here, but what we're saying is the pop counts of these cards in production are not that far different.
Right.
And so,
and I would say it doesn't matter as much on PSA 3s when there are obtainable 8s and 9s.
Yes.
Like there's a good amount of those.
Right. And so let's just go. I'm just curious what a PSA 1 sells for. They don't even have them on here. PSA 2. Let's see. Whoops. PSA 2.
So what we just unraveled is the high-end market for Messi is a lot more than Ronaldo's.
Okay, so this is a PSA 2. The Ronaldo is essentially under a Messi still. But they're fairly comparable unless you go to the absolute high end.
Right. But I think that's still important to note that we might have just discovered that, hey, maybe Ronaldo's high-end stuff is underpriced.
Absolutely.
Because everything else is on par with Messi except for the 10s.
Exactly. So if his high point data is on there, Messi is one of the biggest current holdings that I have. So let me not paint a narrative that is inaccurate here. Right. Messi is I think I have a whole row in my Pelican case specifically for Messi cards. So don't paint, and I don't have any investable Ronaldo cards right now. Mm-hmm. Even though I would say historically I have been a more Ronaldo fan because of the teams that he's on, and I like watching athletic soccer rather than technical soccer until about a year ago. And so I would say now I'm more of a Messi fan than I am a Ronaldo fan, but that's because he's been in front of me. And that's essentially what I wanted to say. In America, that is where the bulk of card sales are happening right now. Yes, there is international data. We talked a lot about international stuff with Cody and how we're potentially going to see a world market come into play in the next 10 to 15 years. But that's not the case right now. When a world market comes into play, I think both of these players' markets will be extremely different. I could see so many scenarios happening with these cards when a world market becomes into play. Who knows how many mega cracks of Messi are just sitting in Spain
Right.
because nobody has the ability to grade them. Who knows? The pop count could rise significantly, and all of a sudden the price drops because we have 300 PSA 10s instead of 50. Who knows? But what I want to argue here is that Cristiano Ronaldo is undervalued specifically for one reason, Krim. And here's the one reason. We have painted them as a scenario and a narrative over the past 10 to 15 years that they are each other's rivals, that everything is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You either were on Team Messi or you were on Team Ronaldo. I remember seeing memes growing up of like like the Twilight team of like the vampire versus the werewolf, and then they had like Ronaldo and Messi's heads on them, and they were like, which one are you choosing? Yeah. Like everybody was like, you don't get up in the morning without sporting either a Real Madrid Ronaldo shirt or a Barcelona Messi shirt. You just don't. You can't wear both. You can't like both. You can't do anything like that. You had to choose. And now these investors that are now have lived that life are now growing up, and they're 30 to 28 to 35 years old, and now we're like trying to figure out which cards are we investing in. And I've chosen Messi because of like his instant reality. Maybe I need to swing back to Ronaldo because here's why. Here's the linchpin in this argument. Ronaldo is 3.5 years older than Messi. And that is something that people are not aware of. We have compared them as equals in every category for so long. People don't expect them to be 3 years difference of age. Now, in regular life, Krim, 3 years, not that much of a big deal.
Right.
Me and you are 4 years apart. I'm 31, you're 28. Or no, that's 3 years.
Weird.
So we're 3 years apart. But we're friends. We're like everything's normal when we hang out together. Like we're genuinely in the same stage of life.
Right.
Like neither one of us have children. So it's like we are fairly the same. Messi and Ronaldo are not the same. And here's what I'll argue. Ronaldo aging 3 years as a professional athlete, 3 years on the back end of a career is a long time, my friend. Now, let me bring out this data. We're going to go back to the transfer market. 36-year-old, so he's 39 right now. 36-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo was valued at $35 million in a transfer market.
And Messi's at 30 right now?
Messi is at 30 right now. Do we see a massive drop-off similar to Ronaldo over the next 3 years of Messi as he potentially stops playing for the national team, as he potentially stops playing for Inter Miami eventually, as he begins to ride off into the sunset? Will we see a more massive decline in Messi's propaganda? Is Messi's heyday in terms of separation from Ronaldo, is his heyday right now, Krim? Like, are we going to see in 3 years, will the debate be very similar again?
That's why I was going to ask you, like 20 years from now when our kids are talking, like who will they say? Like who's going to be talking about more in 20 years? Like, is it going to be Ronaldo? Because obviously, majority of people will probably say Messi is the number one GOAT, right? But Ronaldo has so much more of a social media presence and just like overall more of like a outgoing personality to where people attract to him more.
Right.
So it's like, would you rather have the best? This is going to sound really rude, but would you rather have the best of all time who's boring, or would you rather have a more exciting guy that's just slightly worse than him? And I think that's going to be the debate for the rest of the time.
And my argument is, as you see them ride off into the sunset, their valuation will be the same. So my argument is that Ronaldo cards are undervalued and will continue to be undervalued until their argument is the same. Right. Now, I do not believe that Messi is overvalued. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying Ronaldo is essentially undervalued. I still think they go down as two of the best soccer players of all time, and we need to be more aware that we are lucky to have been living in the time that both of them were playing soccer.
Right.
And we were lucky to see them play El Clásicos against each other for years.
And it's just from your point of view, you are you're just hedging your bet on Ronaldo that he's always just going to be in the conversation. Because if he's just in the conversation with Messi, but Messi's prices are higher, like you would think they even out.
Yeah.
So like you're basically just putting your chip. You're not even putting your chips on the tale of Ronaldo versus Messi. You're not even putting your chips on, over time Ronaldo is going to be better. You're just putting your chips on they should at least be viewed as equals.
Yeah.
And in the high end market, it's not even close that Messi's so far.
Yep. Essentially, what I'm putting my chips on is I'm still willing to invest in both of them.
Yeah.
Because the narrative, at least
right
over the past couple of months, has been like Ronaldo's not even thought about.
Right.
I mean, when was the last time you saw Ronaldo come to your table and say like, "Hey, you buying this?"
Right.
You know, like
and it not be overpriced.
Right. I mean, it's been a long time. And so I'm willing to say that in the long term, they will be close in value again. And that Ronaldo's prices, especially on high end, will go way up because we won't see another player like Ronaldo. Ronaldo has done some stuff that is out of this world. They both are out of this world, really. And the compelling thing about your argument over the next 20 years, and this is where I want to end this segment, is it's going to be very interesting about what it looks like over the next 20 years. Both of them are extremely good people. They're both good men. They both do stuff in like philanthropy. Right. You know, they both are family men. They both have sons. I think that will play into their value in the future about where their sons end up in their careers. Mm-hmm. We see both of them are playing for the academies of the teams that they play for. Now, I'll give you a little hint. Ronaldo's kid seems to be better right now because he's older. That does not mean he's going to end up being better in the future. But little Ronaldo looks nasty. Little Messi honestly looks nasty too. So like they're killing the age comparison of who they are, but we've seen how superstar sons don't always translate to big money. Right. But we are currently looking at a reality of there are juniors all over sports that are succeeding. Mm-hmm. You know, from Bronny James, Arch Manning, you know, you've got all sorts of dudes in the NBA that's dads played, you know, and in soccer, you've seen the same thing, but this will be a different era. It'll come forward as a different era. Now, all I want to say at the very end is invest in both of these players because I think they'll go down in card history as some of the most sought after cards, especially for how low pop their cards are. I have several 2004 Messis that are not PS. And this is also the fun part about these cards. You don't have to get a PSA 10. Mm-hmm. In most of the super modern cards that we have, it's 10 or bust. You're selling nines because you're like, no one's buying these. I have a PSA 8 2004 Messi that I bought from you. You know, and so it's like, and I love that card. It's one of my favorite cards in my portfolio. And it's a PSA 8 because it's so cool, you know. Like it's a 2000.
And I will say to invest in those types of cards as opposed to like a Topps Chrome Gold.
Absolutely
right, because Messi and Ronaldo are going to be marketed as the top chases in soccer products for the rest of time. For as long as Topps is making soccer products, it's going to be there's going to be a picture on the sell sheet that has a picture of Messi or Ronaldo in some fashion. So they're going to be printed so much,
right?
But their rookie cards are probably going to go like relatively. Their pops aren't going to change.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying look at the 3-year differential. I would argue that Messi's value in 3 years is going to be very similar to $15 million for Ronaldo. We are seeing them age differently more than ever in their careers. That's why we're seeing a separation in value. But I think that as they retire and as they ride off into the sunset, it will return back to the very similar evaluation of these players. Plus, they both have extremely good long-term marketability because one of them is one of the most followed person on social media, and the other one now has a percentage return of all MLS funds. So you will see both of them in the limelight, but from totally different vantage points. I think you'll see Cristiano Ronaldo maybe do some commentating, some stuff like that. I think you will see him more as a vocal presence, and I think you'll see Messi as like the quiet guy that was being interviewed and just having banger quotes like Warren Buffett or something like that. I think you will see that kind of thing. You'll see like a presence and then like a presence, but they won't be the same presence. They'll be different, even in the way that they've always been. So continue to invest in these two guys. Sorry, we've done deep cuts today, and they've been about two legends, but Ronaldo's just not getting the credit that he deserves. Shout out to Ronaldo breaking another record today. He has scored over 50 goals in as many. He scored 50 goals in 50 appearances in his time in Saudi Arabia, and he will continue to crush that. And here's to hoping that he potentially comes to the MLS. All right. Yes. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to be dancing off into the Ducks. We had a long episode today. Thanks for sticking with us. It is a happy birthday Chase episode. For those of you guys that are watching this, send Krim a Venmo out there for his birthday. Buy him a beer or something. And
I don't drink, so let's do a Mountain Dew.
All right, cool. I don't drink either, so that's good for us. All right, man. Well, love you, Krim, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Lefty, great work on today's show. Thanks for supporting Lefty Cards, part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com to check out our formula-based sports card rankings to help you make money flipping sports cards. Subscribe to Lefty Cards on YouTube and follow us on socials by visiting LeftyCards.com.
Told you